You know that feeling when you check your bank account and instead of immediately closing the app in horror, you actually smile? Like when you stop calculating whether you can afford that coffee or if buying groceries means eating ramen for the rest of the week? There's a specific number where this shift happens, and it's not what most people think. Most financial gurus will tell you that you need $1 million to feel wealthy or that 6 figures is the magic number. But here's the thing they're missing. There's a much smaller milestone that completely transforms your relationship with money. And once you hit it, everything changes. That number is $20,000. The truth is, wealth building doesn't work the way most people think it does. Here's what actually happens. There are certain financial thresholds that act like invisible barriers. Once you cross them, the rules of the game completely change. $20,000 is the first major threshold that separates those who will build significant wealth from those who will spend their entire lives living paycheck to paycheck. And the crazy part is most people have no idea this threshold even exists. Think about it this way. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, financial psychology, and why some people seem to effortlessly build wealth while others stay stuck in the same financial patterns for decades. If you're someone who wants to understand the real mechanics behind wealth building instead of just hoping things will magically improve, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it ends up helping you see money differently. Today, we're going to break down the mechanics of this milestone, and why crossing it permanently alters the way your brain processes options. Think about it this way. If you've ever tried to push a heavy boulder up a hill, you know that getting it started is the hardest part. You're straining, sweating, making very little progress, and questioning whether it's even possible. But once you build enough momentum, something magical happens. The boulder starts moving faster, and eventually when you reach the top, it rolls down the other side almost effortlessly. $20,000 is that turning point where your financial boulder finally crests the hill. Everything before this point feels like you're pushing uphill against gravity. Everything after this point feels like gravity is working in your favor. Let's say you're saving $1,000 every month and earning an 8% return on your investments. Getting to your first $20,000 takes about 19 months of consistent saving and investing. That's a year and a half of discipline, sacrifice, and delayed gratification. It's not easy, and frankly, most people give up somewhere along the way. But your second $20,000 doesn't take another 19 months. It only takes about 17 months. Why? Because now you've got that first $20,000 working alongside your monthly contributions generating its own returns. You did the exact same amount of work, but you shaved 2 full months off the timeline just because you had more money working for you. That's the power of compound interest starting to kick in. By the time you're going for your third $20,000, the timeline shrinks even more. And when you get to the really big numbers, the acceleration becomes almost comical. Once you hit $400,000 in your investment portfolio, you can generate your next $20,000 in just 5 months. The same amount that took you nearly 2 years to save initially is now happening automatically through your investments. But the difference isn't just mathematical. The real magic happens in your brain. When you don't have money saved, your brain operates in what psychologists call survival mode. Every financial decision is filtered through fear and scarcity. This involves a psychological phenomenon called decision fatigue. Every day you make thousands of tiny financial decisions. Should I buy the generic pasta or the name brand? Can I afford to grab lunch today or should I pack a sandwich? Is it worth paying for premium gas or will regular be fine? Each of these micro decisions burns mental energy. And by the end of the day, you're exhausted from constantly calculating whether you can afford things. When you're in survival mode, your brain literally can't think about growth and opportunity. It's like trying to plan a vacation while your house is on fire. Your mental bandwidth is completely consumed by immediate threats and short-term survival. Neuroscientists have found that financial security actually reduces cortisol levels, which is your body's primary stress hormone. But something remarkable happens when you cross the $20,000 threshold. Suddenly, 90% of these daily financial decisions become irrelevant. You're not choosing between generic and name brand pasta because you're worried about your bank account. You're choosing based on what you actually prefer. You stop sweating the small stuff and start thinking strategically about wealth building. The difference between spending $3 on coffee versus making it at home is largely irrelevant over a long-term timeline. What matters are the big decisions. Where you live, what you drive, how much you save, where you invest. These choices can swing your net worth by tens of thousands of dollars over time. The real secret behind this shift is just basic mathematics working in your favor. When you invest $1,000 and it grows 10% in a year, you make $100. Take that exact same 10% growth rate and apply it to $10,000 and suddenly you're looking at $1,000 in profit. This is why hitting $20,000 feels like such a turning point. Up until that point, your investment returns feel almost insignificant because you're working with smaller amounts. A 10% return on $2,000 is $200, nice, but not exactly life-changing. But a 10% return on $20,000 is $2,000. Now, we're talking about money that actually matters. When you've got $20,000 sitting in investments, earning 8% annually, that's $1,600 flowing into your account over the course of a year without you having to lift a finger. Money you didn't have to earn through your job. Money that showed up because your existing money was working on your behalf. The investment strategy isn't any more sophisticated than what someone with $1,000 can use. The only difference is scale, and that scale transforms small percentage wins into real financial progress. Having $20,000 saved doesn't just change your relationship with money. It changes your relationship with work. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're essentially trapped in whatever job you currently have. Your boss could be terrible, your coworkers could be toxic, the work could be mind-numbing, but you can't leave because you need that next paycheck to survive. This puts you in an incredibly weak negotiating position. You can't ask for a raise because you're afraid they might fire you. You can't push back on unreasonable demands because you need the job more than they need you. You can't explore other opportunities because taking time off for interviews feels too risky. You're stuck and everyone knows it. But $20,000 changes the entire dynamic. Suddenly, you have what I call walking away money. You could quit tomorrow and survive for months while you find something better. This doesn't mean you should be reckless or burn bridges unnecessarily, but it means you're negotiating from a position of strength instead of desperation. This psychological shift affects everything about how you approach your career. You start asking for the raise you deserve because the worst they can say is no and you'll be fine either way. You push back on unreasonable requests because you're not afraid of the consequences. You explore new opportunities because you can afford to take some risks. Here's what's really crazy. Often you don't even need to use your walking away money. Just having it changes your entire demeanor at work. You become more confident, more assertive. It's a positive feedback loop that accelerates over time. But here's where most people mess this up, and I see it constantly. They hit $20,000, feel that psychological shift, and then immediately blow it on something stupid. Maybe they decide they deserve a new car since they've been so disciplined. Don't do this. That $20,000 is not a reward for good behavior. It's the foundation of your entire financial future. What matters are the big decisions. Where you live, what you drive, how much you save, where you invest. The person driving the older Honda is quietly building wealth and sleeping better at night. Start building that foundation today because your future self is counting on the decision you make right now. Trust me, they'll thank you for it.